listen, let's go ahead and assume Lane Kiffin's the new coach at Auburn at some point after the Egg Bowl on Thursday night.
Okay.
Imagine the battle at this point for one guy. And I know initially you guys are going to say he is untouchable, and I say that is not the case. The name is Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt becomes a battle between, I think, Auburn and Alabama.
Wait a minute, Alabama's got Pete Golding.
On who gets Jeremy Pruitt's service. Could Jeremy Pruitt be one of those analysts, much like we've seen this year with Gary Patterson at Texas, where he just sits there and does tremendous game planning and he's not on the sidelines? That could make it look a little easier to the NCAA folks. They've, maybe a show cause coming for Jeremy Pruitt from his time at head coach at Tennessee. But if you go ahead and hire the guy, before the NCAA sanctions come down and there's a show cause, you've already hired him at this point. And now you go and say, well, look, we've got this, and this in line. And remember, Lane Kiffin and Jeremy Pruitt are buddies. So if Alabama's not interested, Lane Kiffin with Jeremy Pruitt as his DC at Auburn becomes a fascinating scenario if you're an Auburn fan.
It would be interesting. I know a lot of Alabama fans, and I didn't realize this sentiment was out there until recently, that say the best defensive coordinator in the Nick Saban era is Jeremy Pruitt. Do you feel that way? Because I would have thought most people would say Kirby Smart.
I would go Kirby Smart and then Jeremy Pruitt.
Yeah, I think you got to go Kirby Smart.
I know a lot of people that go Jeremy Pruitt, though.
People love the way Pruitt was maybe a little bit more aggressive than Kirby was.
Yeah.
On the blitz packages and such.
Yeah, I mean, when it was Kirby, you felt like Nick Saban's own son was, it was like a Ferentz issue where you had Kirk Ferentz and his son, except this son was doing a good job, not a crappy job.
It's kind of splitting hairs, though. I mean, all of their defenses were dominant.
Well, I mean, Ivy and Landmine Believer, it was 100% Pruitt. He is 100%.
A lot of people talk about third and Kirby and fourth and Kirby, that on third and fourth and long,
he wouldn't bring the house.
It was easy to pick up because he would play less aggressive defensively.
Yep.
Protect the sticks, don't rush the quarterback. The old saying is you either storm the fort or protect it. You can't do both, really. And it seemed like Kirby would protect the fort rather than storm the fort, right? So that's a criticism he used to get at Alabama, right or wrong. But I've heard a lot of people say with Pruitt floating around out there, boy, I'd love to bring him back to Alabama. He's my favorite coordinator of the Saban era.
Yeah, I wonder how untouchable he is, though.
Well, I mean, to me, first of all, he is a aggressive recruiter.
Well, if he can't be on the road recruiting, that's a huge issue.
It is.
But I don't know if that'll be the case.
But is it enough for you not to have him?
I'd hate to be a man down recruiting.
And can you say to the NCAA or to Greg Sankey, if Greg Sankey is one of those guys who would step in and say, listen, this guy cannot be in our conference while Tennessee is dealing with this, whatever the Hugh Freeze rule was or anybody else. I don't know how much Greg Sankey can get involved and say you can't hire this guy. But if you're wanting him to be the DC at Auburn with Lane Kiffin, or if you want him to be DC or an analyst in Tuscaloosa, can you tell the NCAA, can you tell Greg Sankey, look, what happened in Tennessee was Jeremy Pruitt without our compliance setup. Jeremy Pruitt inside our compliance setup works. It worked for years. You never had a problem. Jeremy Pruitt inside as an assistant coach at Georgia, at Florida State, was never a problem. It's when Jeremy Pruitt was let loose in the wild that became the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Get back in your cage.
Now, back here under our leadership, and this is the same thing, not in Tuscaloosa. You could make the same case with Lane at Auburn if Lane wants to make him DC.
Could you?
Well, I mean, it's not going to sound the same coming from Lane about Jeremy not being in the wild.
It's a different line tamer.
Yeah. But the fact that Jeremy Pruitt never had any problems as an assistant coach at Florida State, Georgia, and Alabama, only had it as a head coach at Tennessee. Yeah. Now, I know, I'm not naive. People are going to say, Jim, where do you think he learned how to recruit? Listen, I hear you, but I'm making a case to get him back coaching in Tuscaloosa or Auburn. I think Jeremy Pruitt's a fascinating name in this.
It's weird where we draw lines in society. Luke makes a great point in the Vulcan Tire and Automotive chat room. It'd be pretty ridiculous if they don't let Pruitt coach for doing something now legal, but DJ Durkin has coached at 2 SEC schools and he killed a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a weird line to draw. Like, yeah, we're cool with Durkin.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't think Durkin should be out of coaching. he made a huge mistake, but should that have sentenced him to not coaching the rest of his life? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're going to keep Pruitt out or Hugh Freeze out and you let Durkin in, that does seem to be a weird place to draw lines.
Yeah. So let's make that a Cowan Equipment poll question.
Which one would you? Who do you
If you're an Alabama or Auburn fan, are you okay with Jeremy Pruitt being back on your coaching staff? Yes or no?